Sewers! What a marvellous invention indeed. Imagine the issues we would have if the great cities of the Empire had to deal with their waste sewage like small farming villages do. Why, civilization itself, you could say, has marched forward due to the invention of things such as hygiene and medical care and sewer systems. The sewers of the cities such as Altdorf, Middenheim, and even Nuln are vital to the well-being and progress of those cities. Now, of course, they do require some maintenance and looking after, and some of them are perhaps a little larger than needed. The sewers of Altdorf alone are quite massive, having been built up and added to over the last 100 years, maybe even 200 years. They can also house great dangers, vermin and beasts, and things even more worse, even more dark. Luckily, the sewer watch of Altdorf keeps those tunnels as safe as they can. But, well, some smaller towns do not have the manpower to be sending their people down into the sewers. I can only imagine they suffer greatly for that. But still, at the end of the day, who really needs to go into a sewer anyway? Certainly not you or I. Now, if I were you, I'd best avoid them if you can, and let those who work in them do their work. After all, if it is out of sight, it is out of mind. That's what I always say. This is Red Moon role-playing. The tunnel becomes narrower, darker, and smellier as you continue to advance into the sewers underneath the streets of Bogenhafen. You possibly have now been underground for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, hard to tell. It's definitely getting later in the evening. You're all getting tired, and your morale is lowering. You are, after all, in a stinking sewer, which you have discovered not only contains dead bodies, but fearsome wildlife as well. Kruger, what's going through your mind? Merely hours ago, you were getting ready to perform the heist of your life, where you would have been wealthy beyond imagination. Now you are walking through sewage, trying to find a goblin for a couple of gold crowns.
I suppose it serves me right. I mean, the whole thing was a big fraud after all, trying to take something that really wasn't mine. I mean, it's not as if I haven't done any thieving in my life. That's kind of what I've been doing up until now, but still. I knew that it was going to be risky, and it turning out to be a big trap. Yeah, I guess it's how these things can go. So there's, I suppose, some poetic justice in us now having to trudge through sewage instead of being fabulously rich. At least here we should be safe from those people that have been searching for us. I cannot imagine that they would try and come find us here or have any reason to think that we would be here. So that is reassuring in some ways. And yes, we will need the money and perhaps even the favor that we might be able to get out of this. It's good to know rich people, especially now, given that we've basically spent all the money that we had. So, yeah, it's with a certain sense of unease and disappointment, I guess. But at the same time, a feeling that, well, at least there's something to do, and as long as I'm down here, I don't have to think too much about, well, the failure that whole caster Liebering thing was.
What of you, Heinrich? Again, mere hours ago, you were winning a tournament and having people cheer your name. Now you are here, skewering rats. Slight difference, isn't it?
Slight with some similarities. It was against the Bretonnians, so the smell is sort of the same. But this is not the kind of glory that I left home to find. No, no, no.
And finally, Siegfrieda. How are you feeling? A woman of your caliber and your intellect, trudging through a sewer, simply, for the moment it seems, only here to assess dead bodies.
Not great. Things have... well, I don't know that they've taken a turn. Maybe Siegfrieda is an eternal pessimist. But I rather anticipated that everything was doomed to fail. Everything that we had planned, it seemed a little too grandiose. Maybe beyond our ability, or just beyond the whims of fate and the gods to lay everything in our lap so simply. Yes, we had the benefit of a lookalike in the form of Kruger, but our claim to any kind of wealth was always going to be incredibly tenuous. How long before the truth got found out when a question was asked of Kruger or one of us that we wouldn't have been able to answer? So, now this seems more appropriate for people like us, as disgusting as it is to admit it. It doesn't mean I like it. It certainly doesn't mean I want to be down in a sewer picking through bodies and fecal matter and performing autopsies on the only dry patch of ground in this tunnel of wet effluvia. I would very much like to get up to the surface, and the only reason I'm still down here is because there is something to the injustice of how this goblin has been treated that is keeping me pushing forward.
Indeed. And so, with your thoughts morose, you all keep moving forwards. It's not all bad. You're all still alive, and a few hours ago, that, for a moment, didn't seem guaranteed. So at least there's that. Kruger, you're leading the way, following that trail of reddish-green blood that seemed to be left by the goblin. And finally, it leads you to a door. Again, you have, by this point, seen several doors down here. They've all been locked and looked quite sturdy, but this one, you notice, does seem to have a little window in it. And that window is covered with iron bars, but it does seem as if that blood trail quickly snakes up the door and goes through there. What do you do?
Well, that's promising. Perhaps the door will be unlocked in that case. I point this out to the rest of the group. Seems like it's went through that door there.
Well, I've never heard of sewage being kept behind a door.
No, it's a strange thing to find down here, actually. Perhaps it's some kind of secret passage that noble people used to sneak out in the middle of the night to have affairs and things of that nature. Perhaps a priest of some kind. I hear they like that.
I've read stories about these kinds of things, I will admit, though I have to say that if I was being wooed by an aristocrat that was climbing through a sewer to get to me, my excitement at our illicit tryst would probably die out by the time I caught a whiff of him.
What if he was really, really rich?
Well, I suppose that could help conceal some of the smell. Gold is a very pungent metal.
It is indeed. With that said, I begin moving closer to the door then, trying to ascertain whether or not I will be able to open it or if I have to bring my lock-picking tools out.
You attempt to open the door and do indeed find it to be locked.
Rats. Does it seem to have a lock that can be picked, or is it like just barred from the other side? What kind of setup do we have here?
You investigate the door, and it does seem to have some sort of keyhole. And a handle. So you think maybe you could pick this lock to open it. It's probably designed to be locked from either end. You may bring your torchlight to look through that little opening, but unfortunately it's not quite big enough for you to really see much beyond, other than that there is a sort of chamber behind the door, but you can't really see anything else right now.
And the blood trail definitely leads up to this door.
Indeed it does. In fact, it doesn't just lead up to the door, it's partially on the bars. It occurs to you that it's very likely the goblin is the right size to have been able to squeeze through said bars.
So it's more like an iron gate, then, than a thick door.
It's a big wooden door, but there's a little window in it. You imagine normally the window maybe could be closed. So You wouldn't see what was beyond it, but it seems someone has forgotten to do that.
I look to the others and I bring out the tools that I have for lockpicking, and I hope this won't take too long. I guess maybe you can look around and see if you can find anything else around here while I'm doing my work.
You know something, I'm quite comfortable holding the torch above you while you're working on it rather than descending back into the sewer to find something of worth. The blood trail leads here. I am, for once in my life, decided this is the way we're going.
Fair point. I look to Heinrich.
Oh no, I was about to take the torch idea too. I don't know that I need to, and I'll kind of tow the nearest bit of mess and make a face. Don't think I need to dig too much deeper into this mystery. That said, I consider myself on rat watch.
Well, keep an eye out then, and I will begin to get to work then, trying to pick the lock of this door.
Indeed you will. Give yourself a +10 to this roll. You have good light. It's not a very sturdy door. And your lock-picking kit has barely been used. So it's almost brand new.
That is 24 under 49.
5 minutes pass as you begin fiddling around with the lock, but eventually it clicks open. You realize nice and quickly that this is a very standard door. If you had the key, it would not be difficult to open. Or close.
Is there any way to figure out what this door would be for? I mean, do we know anything about sewers or what kind of purpose this might have had? Is it like an exit up to the street, or?
Would any of you be able to argue that you do have advanced knowledge of the sewers of the Empire?
I think it would possibly me.
I think you're the one with your criminality is going to get us the closest to that answer, I think.
Yeah, I certainly have been skulking around these kinds of locales on many occasions.
Then I would argue that you'd have a pretty good hunch that it's likely a cellar of some kind. You are, after all, in the sewers underneath buildings. Buildings have cellars. Cellars have to go somewhere. In a city like this, it would be the sewers. You have seen several other doors on the way here. It's also likely there's more than just one entrance into the public sewer system. There's probably several ways of getting into the sewers, for any number of reasons. Maintenance, private use, that sort of thing.
This is probably going to take us into some kind of cellar. Let's go see what we can find. Hopefully we won't be trespassing. I mean, we probably will be, but at least not trespassing somewhere important.
In fairness, not the first instance of breaking and entering we've done, so one more? Meh.
Yep, I'm in agreement. I think that our cause compels us to continue in this way.
What do you do, Kruger?
Well, I ask back my torch, and I begin to lead the way forward, then trying to keep track of this blood trail, also to make sure that, yes, the goblin did indeed pass through here, and I suppose see where it's gone. It could still be in here, trying to hide perhaps. It seems to be fairly, well, badly injured. There's a lot of blood.
Indeed. You follow the blood trail a few more steps into the darkness. This is a very small room. Your torch begins to light the corners. The first thing you notice is the strange pattern on the floor. There is a ram's head, central to a strange pattern that almost looks like a star shape, but a star shape with 8 sides. This star is in a circle. The circle seems to have some writing around it, written in the circular bit of it. The blood trail descends to the center of this circle and stops in a nice big pile. The pile of blood seems to have bits in it as well. Looking around, you see stone walls, a stone ceiling, and in the far corner beyond this weird symbol on the ground, there seems to be a metal cabinet. closed. Seems to be some blood near there as well.
Any exits?
No.
So it's just a room down here then. Some kind of cell in the sewers, basically.
That's how it looks at the moment, yes.
Very strange. Perhaps, well, given the hatch that one could have looked through, maybe a storage place for smugglers, or it doesn't look much like a dungeon.
No.
But if I was to use a chamber beneath the streets to maybe secrete treasures, things I had stolen, or things I was trying to transport through the city without notice, I suppose this would be as good a place as any to do so. I'm no expert, of course.
It certainly could be. You also, Siegfrieda, will immediately recognize the ram's head. It is the same symbol on that little card you're currently carrying.
It just comes back to me. This is I think that was a card. I pull it from my pouch. I was given this card at the guild house. I think it's the Merchants Guild from memory. So again, storage seems likely.
Which chamber of the Merchants Guild is the one that deals in bloody refuse?
Oh, I'm not saying that this is a reputable merchants guild. I know very little about the mercantile enterprise, though I have heard that they do get quite cutthroat when it comes to things like coin. Otherwise, maybe this is just a room that no one has visited in years. Maybe a creature crawled in here to die, or perhaps someone reappropriated it for some reason. In other words, I don't know.
Is the goblin lying there dead on the floor? Is that what we're seeing, or?
Well, it's hard to tell. There's a big bloody pool, and there's bits. Do you want to go and look at them?
Yeah, I do. And I sort of motion to Siegfrieda as well. Maybe you can identify if this is our friend here. Shouldn't be. He hasn't been gone that long, right?
I tentatively approach. Have your blades at the ready if you could.
I do as she says.
You approach the bloody mess, Siegfrieda. Kneeling down a little, you'll also notice that at the corners of these little pointed triangles, or the star shape if you will, are candlesticks. 8 of them, and they each have 8 positions for 8 candles, currently unlit.
Well, there's some kind of ritual going on here again. No expert, I'm not a sorcerer. But this is all very intricate.
Still investigating the corpse. Again, you can see that writing, which circles around this circle. And, well, I say corpse. You think there's a little bit of a thigh bone, and there's another bone there. That's about it. Everything else is a sort of paste.
Can I infer from the size and shape of the thigh bone what kind of creature this might have come from?
Roll a law medicine check.
Okay. One of my better skills. In fact, the best one I have. And a good roll, too. I have rolled a 10 out of 58.
You poke at the bone, consider its size, its shape. Yes, this is a thigh bone of some kind. It would have belonged to a very small creature, possibly goblin-sized. It's currently covered in viscera and blood, and the rest of the skeleton and the rest of the body seem to be missing.
Well, this doesn't bode well. This is definitely a goblin bone, and given the fact that we can see the bone, means that, as it hasn't been that long since we saw that little creature running this way, something has done a damn good job of stripping its flesh. I'm very suspicious of this ritual circle in the room that we're currently inhabiting, and how that might have had an effect on a creature in the middle of it. But again, this is hypothesis, superstition, innuendo. I'm not prepared to commit. I'm not an expert. Is there any way of telling how this creature died based on the scrapped remains that exist in this room.
Possibly dissolved, possibly smashed into pieces, devoured, blown apart by a magical explosion. Hard to tell exactly what, but it definitely barely seems to exist anymore.
None of those things sound good all the same.
No. I'm not that keen on remaining in this chamber unless one of you is good at finding secret passages out. I never thought I'd be one to say let's get back into the sewer, but if something exploded this goblin, we have no way of knowing if that thing won't come back or affect us.
For secret passages, I would turn to Kruger, but can I ask, I have language classical? Is this something that I could attempt to decipher? Or is it not in that same linguistic wheelhouse?
On the contrary, you can definitely read it. It's rather simply spelt. Do you want to read what the floor says?
Well, not out loud, to be clear.
Then you will not read it out loud, but you will simply observe it says Ordo Septenarius. And it just says that repeatedly.
I feel like that's safe enough to share with the rest of the group. I will ask it as a clever question. Have any of you heard of the Ordo Septenarius?
The answer to that will be no, although you would know, Siegfrieda, that at least the first part is just another way of saying order.
Yeah.
So, order something. Septenarius, maybe the number 7 or 8, or something to do with serpents, not quite sure.
I do have Lore Reichland if I can roll that. I don't know whether it would help.
It wouldn't. It's simply a random word. It could be anything. It could be the order Bullicus, the order Ducicus. You think it's simply the name of an order.
Okay.
The way that you're saying that leads me down a paranoid rabbit hole where this is somebody who has dressed up something to look spooky and then just put fake Latin or the equivalent on top of it.
I mean, you would know that that is a very popular thing to do, and the nobility love it.
Alright. Well, that actually makes me feel a little better that we have stumbled into someone's creepy party as opposed to yet another chaos-infused nightmare.
I wouldn't be so certain, Heinrich. As much as I would love to say that you're almost certainly correct, there is still the case, and I point it out, of an exploded goblin. And yet, I'm guessing, can I see any kind of powder burns, anything that implies the source of a detonation in this place?
You cannot, but as you look closely, you can see some of the candles are beginning to light. A nice, purplish blue colour.
See, that's just not normal, I say, pointing at the candles. The candles don't light themselves.
No, you definitely don't have to be an occultologist to know this is not how it's supposed to work. I am going to start heading expeditiously towards the door.
Heinrich, you begin heading towards the door. What about you, Kruger? There you were, watching this all, and yes, the candles are all beginning to light. And smoke. There's a smoke starting to come from the floor.
Yes. I will... While the others have been studying the circle, there was some kind of cabinet, yes?
There was indeed.
I will have tried to quickly have a look just to see if there's anything there.
You head to the cabinet, quickly trying to get it open. It is locked again, but you do notice there's also some barrels just behind the cabinet, and they seem to be empty, but they have got FS on them in big black letters.
FS. Alright, I remember that, and seeing what the others are seeing, I also figured that it's probably best to get out of here while the getting is good.
And so you two begin heading to the exit, leaving merely you, Siegfrieda. You notice that the others have suddenly, rapidly decided to leave this chamber. But what do? The smoke is beginning to get thicker, purple and blue.
As intrigued as I am by any kind of experiment, I don't want to be caught in the middle of an explosion. That's not my idea of a good day out. Neither is going in a sewer for that matter. But curiosity does compel me to do one thing, and it may be utterly stupid, but I'm going to try it anyway. As I likewise take flight from the room, I intend to pick up one of these candles and take it with me. See whether it stays alight as we leave.
You pick up the candle, and it does indeed start to come to life, illuminating everywhere with a wonderful blue-purple flame. And as you all step to the exit, you begin to hear something laughing from within this room. A discordant, noisy laugh. The laugh of a child, or an old woman, or a wolf, or a bird. It seems to be all these things at once. You're now all at the exit of the room. The smoke is beginning to billow and fill the chamber. What do?
Alright, we have to get back to the sewer, I say, and I rush out, basically just hopefully not running into some kind of an ambush waiting out there, but definitely wanting to get out of this room as quickly as possible.
Then Kruger rapidly begins heading back into the sewers. What about you, Heinrich and Siegfrieda?
I'm not too far on Kruger's heels, but I'm also a little curious, enough to maybe shut the door, lock it, and then look through the window to see what's really going on.
You do realize that you don't think you'll be able to lock the door. You can close it, but there's no key or any way of locking it on your end, at least.
Oh, then absolutely not. I'm dumb. I'm not that dumb.
Then you close the door to the best of your ability and quickly, rapidly head after your friend. Once again, Siegfrieda, do you simply follow your companions?
Absolutely. I am not nearly brave or stupid enough to stick around when there's some weird chimerical laughing going on.
Then the three of you rapidly run back the way you came, for a moment hearing behind you a discordant, raucous laughter. But the laughter fades as you run, and you turn a few corners, and the candles in the candlestick go out, and you are once again by yourselves in the sewers.
What was that?
I have no earthly idea.
Did the goblin just run into some kind of trap that it just found itself stuck in there, and then it was, consumed by that laughing thing? That's what must have happened, right? It's not like some kind of ritual took place while we were searching for it. I mean, there wouldn't have been time for that, right?
Well, there actually would have been. Remember, you've been down here for an hour and a half at this point.
It would still be quite fortuitous for someone to be setting up a sacrificial ritual, and then just as they complete their preparations, a goblin happens upon the scene.
Oh, you don't know, Heinrich. You know, these chaos cultists. I've read about them. They have an amazing gift of foresight. Sometimes they will even arrange for victims to come to them in a sort of irony sense. You know, that this was always your fate to die here, despite the fact they did everything to engineer that death. For all we know, we could have been led there for exactly that purpose. All of this could have been set up. The goblin, Gottry, the dwarf, even that ridiculous Dr. Malpheus Zootopia. I'm starting to get a bit conspiracy theorist now as I wave the candle in a energetic manner. We don't know how deep this goes.
They are actually after us, so it might not be a conspiracy.
Okay, well, thank you for making it much worse for me. I appreciate that, both of you. But, turning back to the matter at hand, then what? We go back to the surface and we say, hello, yes, we found your goblin. They were sacrificed in a horrible chaos ritual in the sewers of your city. Money, please?
Well, it's the truth.
It would make a change for us to actually tell the truth to someone.
A fair point. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page before we go say something. And at this point, I kind of hitch a little bit. Is this actually something unusual? I've not been in many city sewers. Are they normally infested with chaos cults? Looking to both Kruger and Siegfrieda.
Well, the answer is a mixture of, yes, it is extremely unusual, but it does happen, but it's extremely unusual and would certainly make lots of people very, very unhappy.
And I put a hand up. And we know what happens to individuals who claim to have even been in touch with chaos. Who's to say we're not going to run into some inquisitor with a feathery hat who thinks these three have been in contact with a chaotic ritual and they therefore need to be purged of all their wicked blood and all that nonsense.
That is precisely why I asked the question. We've been pursued by inquisitors already. Presumably they communicate with one another. So we're gonna go upstairs and say, hey, it's us, the Chaos Crew. Found some more chaos. Definitely not our fault. Do you see why?
I do. I just find it disheartening that we have... Yes, I just find it disheartening. Because, once again, well, we are stood ankle deep in shit. And our future is that we will go up to the surface, either have to lie that we found nothing and receive no payment, tell the truth and potentially not only have chaos cultists after us, but also inquisitors now again, after the last one was killed. I'm strongly considering setting up a house down here. The people who built that storeroom had the right idea.
Not to mention, Siegfried, in regard to arguments you'd made just earlier this evening, there is actually a moral quandary here, because if there is actually a chaotic ritual taking place under the street, well, you've heard lots of stories that those normally end up with every single person in the town or village dying horribly.
I groan, and I relay that information to the group. So now there's a moral obligation on us to do something about it.
Does this end with us having to go back to the room and see what happened? Is that what's going on here?
I think we're going to end up having to go back there regardless. We either go up to the surface and get enlisted to do so, or we go and do it now. And right now, I fear that the repercussions will be the same either way. So, let's gird ourselves. Do you have any alcohol?
I don't drink when I work.
I only have medicinal alcohol. Well, I suppose it will have to do. I take a swig of it.
What do you do, Kruger? Currently, you are away from there and safe. You feel a slight chill coming from that direction as you think of going back in it. You could, of course, also go back up. You know where to go now, and maybe you could inform some people or get some help. The choice is yours.
Yes, we could, but it would probably just lead us back, just like Frida said. Probably end up having to show the way, and there is the risk that we would end up being, well, purged. So perhaps the best thing is to just solve this. I mean, there's the three of us, we're capable. What's some little chaos thingy going to be able to do to us? Huh. This'll be fine, I say to the group. We'll deal with this.
In fairness, the last chaos creature that I saw killed someone else and let me go, so who's to know? I say, trying to inject humor into the situation, but probably badly.
Yes, because it does mean that the person that this chaos creature will kill, if not you, is us, though I leave that unspoken as I just stare at you.
Well, let's do this thing.
Due respect to both of you, I think it's my turn to lead, right? As I draw my rapier.
And I have my bow at the ready. I'll be right behind you.
I pat myself down. Do I have anything that I might be able to use as a weapon? I have a dagger, but for once I will put it in my hands and hope that I don't have to use it.
Indeed. Then the three of you turn round, heading back into the dark to that door. As you are once again standing outside that door that is closed but not locked. It's dark again. The weird lights are gone. And there you are. What do you do? Heinrich, you're now leading the way.
After peering through the little window, there's no smoke in the room, no leftovers, no new exploded corpses, anything like that I can see from here?
No.
Well, then it's on me to open the door and head tentatively inside, not sprinting to the center of the room, but at least taking a few furtive steps forward.
You begin stepping forwards again. Once again, the candles begin to light, and the smoke begins to build, and the room begins to fill with a purple and blue light. What do?
I'll rush in and just start kicking those candles away, trying to disturb this thing as much as possible.
You do so. You begin kicking the candles to the ground, and you also notice that some of the shape in the ground is disturbed as well. It's some sort of red. Something red was painted on the ground, and you're now disturbing it. As you do so, the figure begins to intensify in the shadows, a figure roughly the size of you. Its arms longer though, its legs spindlier. 4 arms, 5 arms, 3 legs, and then a face begins to emerge from the darkness and the smoke. What do, Kruger?
I just try to back away and get ready to fire at this thing. If it has some kind of physical body, perhaps it can be killed.
Maybe. What about you, Heinrich? What about you, Siegfrieda? Something is definitely beginning to materialize, and it is not small.
Oh, God.
My instinct would be to one hand blade forward, the other gesturing them back towards the door, so at least there's a choke point to whatever degree that helps us. I would hate to be in a position where the three of us are in a whirling melee together and it becomes difficult to distinguish friend limb from foe limb. But as I'm doing that, the question I would ask is, did we just accidentally break the seal it in thing? Is that what happened?
Sadly, you have no idea. None of you are skilled in demonic magics, or any magic at all, so you have no idea what you're doing.
I gesture wildly. I don't know. This is pretty far from removing someone's swollen appendix.
I think we might end up at the removing appendix problem pretty soon.
And so, with Kruger and Siegfrieda making sure to be behind you, Heinrich, you are all able to arrange yourselves so at least Heinrich's at the front and the other two are nice near the exit. The being steps forward, its skin quivering under the torchlight and the strange blue and purple light. It has great horns upon its head, 5 or 7 eyes, red, blue, green, and then as it kind of adjusts its back, it leans forward. Several mouths open on its body, but one of them is bigger than the others, and from there come giant, slithering, snake-like tongues as this being laughs and then screams at you. A scream that sounds like a large group of people being brutally murdered. Could everyone please roll a coolness roll? Please tell me what your success levels are.
2 success levels.
-4, but I have actually critically failed on a 77 above my 35.
And what of you, Siegfrieda?
I succeed by 2 degrees. I get a 31 out of 56.
Heinrich, you take one look at the horror before you, and realize very quickly that you no longer wish to be here. In fact, by the time you've realized it, not only have you barged past the others, screaming at the top of your voice, but you have already rapidly made your way out of the room and down, heading to the exit to the sewers.
Oh, I don't even care if I'm heading toward the exit. A simple geometric question of greatest distance from thing. Good luck finding me later, friends.
Kruger, you see this happen. You look at the horror before you. You begin to sweat. There is no way you can defeat this foe. You are going to die here. But you're not running. And Siegfrieda, you also feel this urge to run in terror and fear and panic, but for some reason you do not. What do, Kruger? It is your turn.
Siegfrieda, we cannot do this without Heinrich. Tactical retreat, all right? No shaming that. And I just begin backing away, trying to not turn my back to this thing as it will probably lash out, but moving away as quickly as I can with my blade drawn against it.
Yes, but I have a plan, I will run as well. I will run past you while screaming, I have a plan!
And Siegfrieder's already gone, Kruger, leaving just you to back away. You get to the exit. The being takes a step forward, laughing. It says in a voice that doesn't really make any sense, and yet somehow it does make sense. Brave Kruger, come! All the vaults, all the keys, every fortune, every coin you will know. Come, it awaits you. Come, take my hand, brave Kruger.
It's tempting, but no, and I begin just running now, booking it as quickly as I can, given that I'm completely alone.
And book it you do. Running. All three of you aren't really sure how much time passes. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? But eventually you catch up with Heinrich. Heinrich, you made it all the way back to the ladder. And it is only now, as you're about to climb up, that you kind of realise you're not entirely sure where you are, and you see the others quickly catching up with you. What do you do, Heinrich? You are yourself again. You're not quite sure what just happened.
Must be pretty easy to find me, just follow the screaming down the tunnel. I will spend a few seconds attempting to recompose myself. After all, I am supposed to be the brave one. But there's probably no accomplishing that. Instead, I will leap into gratitude, I believe. Oh, good. Thank God you made it out. Oh, Siegfried,
There's no time for that. There's no time for that. We need to lead that creature up to the surface. My eyes are wide.
It's following you.
It might be. And if it isn't, I suggest we make it.
Oh, no further questions. From the moment Siegfried says it might be, I am up that ladder.
Oh, for Sigmar's balls. Come back here.
Heinrich does not come back here. He climbs all the way up and is once again on the surface.
Siegfried said lead it to the surface. I'm following instructions as far as I understand.
Kruger, you reach Siegfrieda. You take a moment to catch your breath. Again, how long have you been running? If you're all the way back at the entrance, then maybe you just ran for an hour? You think? You look behind you and see nothing. There is no elements of pursuit. The sewers are just dark and imposing. But you do see above you that one of you has climbed out of the sewers and seems perfectly safe and fine. So maybe up there is safe and fine.
Is it still following you?
I couldn't see. Maybe.
Spend a second, listen. Let's just listen.
Alright, and I become as quiet as I can, and if there's some kind of corner I can peek around, I will do so. Otherwise, I'll just try to ascertain from this location whether or not this thing is still in pursuit of us. It didn't seem to be that fast, but, well, you never know with things like these.
You take a moment to step back and look around a corner. How many corners did you just take? You're not sure. You really have no idea of the adventures you've now just had running from this thing. But you are very sure you hear nothing, except the sound of rats from somewhere and the sound of sewage.
I just look at Siegfried and I shake my head. Nothing.
Fine. Okay, let's just get out of here.
Yeah. That's, It was impressive that you stayed as long as you did. That thing was a nightmare. Nightmare come alive.
And so, the two of you begin climbing up that ladder and rejoin your friend on the surface. It is now well into the middle of the night. Although you have no idea exactly what the time is, the moon is thick and green above your heads. And just as you're all getting yourselves together, you realise that guard from, you suppose it was hours ago now, is still here. He'd fallen asleep, but hearing you all re-emerge on the surface, he comes forward. Yes, friends. Hello, friends. Yes. Oh, there you are. Oh, so you found the goblin?
Well, in a manner of speaking.
Ah, good. Well then, I'll close up here, and in the morning, the magistrate will meet you at the festival. You can't miss the tent. He'll reimburse you. And again, the man starts staring at you, Siegfrieda. It's the same man from before, an older man. But doesn't seem drunk now. Once again, he's just staring very intently at you.
Well, I suggest you seal that sewer off and don't send anyone down. The goblin was sadly, and I think twice before naming any kind of chaos beast, was ripped to pieces by oversized rats, as was a dwarf that we encountered earlier on the surface by the name of Gottfried Gurnason.
Oh, I see terrible news. Yes, I'll seal up right away. Are you okay? Are you okay? Madam, you're not hurt, are you?
I'm not hurt, no. But I certainly need to be somewhere that smells a little better.
Of course, you should get to a safe tavern. You two, get this fine lady to a safe tavern. What did you say your name was again?
My name is Siegfrieda.
The man openly gawps at you. He just gawps and starts muttering something under his breath.
Are you quite all right?
Yes, I'm fine. Siegfrieda. Can't, no. Yeah, I'm fine. Good evening. And he turns and seems to be attempting to just rapidly walk away, looking very shaken. This is very obvious to all three of you, by the way.
I'm not one to step on Siegfrieda's business, so I will look to her before looking back to him and making a head motion like, should I stop the guy? You wanna chit-chat?
Wait.
The man freezes.
Turn around.
He turns. What? I need to. It's late at night. I need to turn in. I need to close the sewer.
I want to put your mind at ease, old man. And I say this through rather dim eyes. My brows low, my eyes half closed. I can see the family resemblance. Similar nose, similar colour to the eyes, that kind of thing gets passed down. But don't start feeling remorse now that you've been confronted by me. Now that we've just so happened to run across each other's paths. You are no more family or distant relative to me than you were yesterday. You can go on without any sense of guilt, because I have no resentment towards you, but nor do I have any desire to know you.
The old guard begins to stutter, and then he begins to weep. And he just nods. No guilt. No guilt. Yes, as you wish. As you wish. And he begins to turn away. No one needs to roll an intuition check. This is a devastated, broken shell of a man.
I don't know him from Sigmar, but looking to Siegfrieda, does it appear that her being dismissive is genuine, or is this one of those just putting up a shield to keep walking through the universe kind of things?
I think it's more likely to be the latter. There is definitely resentment there. Siegfrieda, I feel like I was abandoned as a child, because I was. And right now, my interpretation of this man's stuttering and fumbling and panic is as if a man has been confronted with a crime after having committed it 20 years ago. I'm not suddenly overwhelmed with a desire to hug the person that abandoned me. And if what I say makes him feel worse, well, that's on him. But yeah, I do feel, I'm not completely made of stone or anything like that. But I'm going to need a lot more than stuttering guilt to win my affection.
Fair enough. Well, I also know that based on our travels so far, Siegfried is not much of a hugger. So based on having seen that reaction, I look over, one hand on the hilt of my rapier, again, not menacingly, just by reflex. Make eye contact and give her a nod that just says, I understand what happened here, and if we're friends about it, I will do my very Heinrich best to be supportive for whatever that means. It comes off a little clumsy, but incredibly genuine.
What about yourself, Kruger? This is all very strange. There's this strange old guard now walking off, and those words that Siegfried just said to this person seem to have deeply, deeply destroyed them.
Well, clearly there's something going on there. But I don't think it's my place to really comment on that or do anything about it. I hope she'll be alright. Maybe time to ask about that a little bit later, but not now.
The guard says no more. He does his job. He goes to quickly reseal the sewer entrance and then just walk off into the night, beginning to weep louder as he thinks he's no longer in your earshot. But he's not very subtle. Meanwhile, you're now standing on the side of a road, dead in the middle of the night. The green glow of the moon, the only thing lighting the streets. Everyone seems to be retiring to their bedchambers now. There is far less noise on the streets, and even the taverns seem to be slightly quieter. Just you free, and... Oh, one other thing. You, Kruger, think you hear the sound of a raven or a crow just sort of caw-cawing at you before flying off into the night.
An ill omen, I say, to the group.
Oh good, another one.
Just what we need. I suppose it's time for us to turn in for the night. We'll meet the magistrate in the morning and see if we can still get some money out of this. I mean, we did head down there after all.
Yes, but we have nothing to prove for it. I didn't even bring back that thigh bone.
You do have a nice silver candlestick, though, that could sell for anywhere between 5 to 10 silvers, maybe even a gold crown.
It'll keep us in rooms for a little while longer.
Did we also keep the candle?
Yes.
That should be evidence enough for whatever chaos-chasing zealot needs to be convinced one way or another.
Yeah. It might help. It might help incriminate us, but it will definitely help with something.
You always have a way of finding the bright side.
Siegfrieda is going to turn in for the night.
And so all three of you will make your way back to the Journey's Inn. And upon getting to the entrance, immediately be confronted by the landlady, who currently also has 2 rather burly people with her. She gives you all one look, sniffs the air. Yes, it's going to be 10 silvers for each of you for the bath you need to have before I let you in my establishment. That's fine, isn't it? Have you been in a sewer?
How could you tell?
The odour, the smell. But again, no worries, I'll pour some water for you, 10 silvers each.
That seems a bit much for a bath, ma'am.
Well, we are literally about to close, and you've turned up, and even though you are handsome, I have no idea what the hell you've been doing. If you don't like my rooms, I'll refund you, and you can go and stay in another inn. There's definitely some that won't mind the smell.
Just a quick question, madam. Just to, I guess, prove a point from some fantasies that I read when I was younger. If my friend Heinrich here did arrive at your room to seduce you while stinking of sewage, would you still accept him based on his looks, or would you insist that he bathed first?
Not for 10,000 gold crowns.
Ah, well, it does turn out that those were fables after all. I don't think there are many aristocratic secret tunnels running through the sewers, at least not for illicit trysts. So we found out something.
I just snort loudly from behind a hand, just hiding my grin.
Well, how about we take that bath, huh? I'm tired. I'm sure you are as well.
Listen, alright, I'll waive the... My goodness, alright, 10 silvers for all 3 of you. Just please, just have a bath or leave my establishment.
That sounds good, thank you.
Very kind.
In that case, deduct 10 silvers from someone. as you were quickly taken to the back of the tavern near the kitchen and presented with a big large tub and some water.
I'll pay for that.
Then, with money transferred and a little bit of organisation needed, you will all be able to have a bath, and then finally actually be let into your rooms, where you will sleep the night away in one rather nice room, actually, now that you've been given a bath. As you go to bed, you will notice one last thing, Siegfrieda, just as you go over to collect all those documents from earlier and make sure they're all nice and safe in that journal satchel you found. There was one thing you missed, and that was a drawn picture. Very nice. It's a perfect likeliness of Kruger. You now know that, they've had a drawing all this time. That explains some of how they've been finding him so easily.
Well, I won't be pinning this up on my wall.
And with that, our 3 brave travellers will descend into sleep.
Is it easy to sleep after everything that we saw? I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
Ironically, it is. Because you didn't realise it, but the second your head hits the pillow, you are all utterly exhausted. Not only have you been running around sewers for hours, but there was all the stuff that happened earlier in the evening. So you actually fall asleep immediately. You're so tired.
That's a blessing, at least.
Your dreams, on the other hand, Kruger, are not pleasant. On one hand, you have strange corpses following you with their faces missing. On the other hand, a crow, just watching you from atop a building while the green moon waits behind him. For you, Heinrich, your sleep is full of pictures of the boat, the Berabelle, everyone on it dead. You see the captain reaching for you, screaming, "Why did you lie, boy? Why did you lie, boy? Why?" Before falling dead. And for you, Siegfrieda, a laughing old man. You can picture the scene. You're only a small girl, and around you, a man and woman laughing their heads off. Stupid girl! We hope he makes you suffer! Eventually, though, these dreams will pass. And the morning will come, as you are all awoken by the sounds of merriment, happiness, and laughter. It does seem as if the Schaffenfest once again is in full swing.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played the legendary campaign The Enemy Within for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, published by Cubicle 7. In this first part of the series, we are tackling Book 1, Enemy in Shadows. Joining us as players in this series are none other than Aaron Hammonds from Queen's Court Games and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music was made by Flowers for Body Snatchers, Wordclock, Metatron Omega, Ager Sonus, Apocryphus, Halgrath, and Northumbria, featuring a number of collaborations with other artists, and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Julián, Cameron, Xabier, and Antxon for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult Divinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as the champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember, Skaven are definitely not real.